The Codex desktop app now has a very poorly named feature, pets. I was worried this was going to be just a new iteration of Clippy, but it's starting to grow on me. I reviewed the Codex app on day one when it first launched. I was kind of lukewarm on it. It didn't exactly fit the needs that I had, and some of the features that I wanted were just missing. But in the last few weeks, they've added quite a few new features and upgrades, and of course, the new Codex model has been introduced, and I haven't really played around with that much. So I thought it was time for a second look at the Codex desktop app. So right up front, since I can hear you all asking about it, the Codex desktop app is available for both Mac and Windows, but the computer use, which I'll talk about in a minute, is only for Mac users right now. And it's worth saying, Codex is available to all ChatGPT users, even those on the free plan. Now, you're going to get very limited usage if you're not paying, and progressively better and better usage the more you pay, but you can try it out for free, and most of the features that I'm talking about today should be available to everyone. Unless you're not in the US. Some of the features that I'm talking about today aren't available everywhere. So if you're interested in something specifically, I suggest you go check out the OpenAI documentation. And finally, my last disclaimer, I swear, this app is changing so fast that the things I'm talking about today and where you might find some of the features, they might move by the time you're watching this video. First up, the very poorly named pets. You can find these guys in the settings, under settings, and then appearance. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll see pets. Keep scrolling and you get a list of pets to choose from. I really wish they had called these something different because most of these are kind of humanoid, and there's just something that doesn't sit right with me calling humanoid figures pets. And in case you're wondering, yes, this is where you can set the light or dark setting. And yes, I am trying the light setting just out of curiosity. I'm trying something different. So you have a list of pets to choose from, or you can create your own pet. And I did give that a shot. If you do that, it'll bring up this prompt, hatch a pet, create a pet based on what you know about me. Of course, you can change this to say anything you want. I let it go ahead and create one based on what it knows about me. Quick little side note, you might want to not work in a project so that it's just kind of its own thing, so you don't accidentally pollute something that you've already got selected over here. So I did let this create a custom pet for me. This guy is who I got. Totally fine, but I will say it took about 30 minutes for it to create this pet. And as far as I could tell, there was nothing that was actually customized to me. I didn't see anywhere in its thinking process that it had memories of me that it was using or things that it knew about me to do anything particularly special. But it was worth watching. It was interesting watching it spawn off all the various agents. All right, but so once you have a pet selected, I'm going with little fireball guy. I was worried that this would go too heavily into Clippy territory. I was worried that he would pop up when I least wanted him and keep offering little, nudges to get back to Codex. But I'm happy to say it's really just a nice, subtle little sprite. So if I ask Codex to do a little task for me, he'll get to work. And then I can leave this app. I can head on over to do some other work somewhere else, and he will sit in the corner and just let me know that he's working. You can move him around to make sure that he's not in the way, and he'll just sit there and let you know that the task is being worked on. And so one of the things I like is there is no giant notification that pops up and says, your task is done. Do you want to go back to Codex? It just kind of quietly, either you'll see a little check mark on the working box, or the message will just go away. So when you see that the work is not still being performed, you can just click on your little guy and it pops you right back to your Codex app. So I have to say, the more I used this feature, the more comfortable with it I became. Once I realized it wasn't going to be interruptive or distracting, it just became a nice little hotkey to get me back to my Codex app. Not to mention, he's pretty cute. The other thing that I think they did well is this guy, if you have to restart Codex or reboot your machine, he does not come back on by default. Or at least so far, you have to go back into settings, into the appearance menu, and make sure you wake him up again. You can also use the /pet command. If your little friend is asleep, that will wake him up. And if he's already up and moving around, it will tuck him back away again. Okay, that's more than enough about pets and more time than it actually probably deserves for a cute little sprite figure that will more than likely be discontinued in a few weeks. The first thing that I noticed when I came back into the Codex app is that they finally fixed up some of the naming convention. When I first looked at this project's label was labeled threads. To me, that was just super confusing because I came in here and I couldn't tell if these were projects or sessions or threads. Thread to me is more pieces of conversation, so it's a little confusing as to what you were actually looking at. But I think I probably wasn't the only one that was confused by that because I see now they have changed that header to projects. So now it makes sense. You can come in here and see your projects all laid out, and then you can see individual threads or sessions that you might have had within that project. I like this a lot better. The next thing that they did that I really like, they have a whole separate section down here for chats. So this is similar to ChatGPT. You can just come in here and ask a question. You don't need to be in a project. In fact, if you find yourself accidentally in a chat because you came from a project into a new chat, you just want to come down to this bottom drop down and say, don't work in a project. That gives you a clean, sort of empty slate to work in. You have access to the Codex coding models in here rather than just the GPT conversational models. So sometimes that's just a little bit nicer and might have more, it might be geared more toward the information that you're looking for since you're in the Codex coding app anyway. One of the other changes that they've made fairly recently is they now have a personality. You can choose between friendly or pragmatic. I think by default it's on pragmatic, but I do like friendly just a little bit better. I did ask the same question to both versions of the ChatGPT personality. What's the difference between a Git work tree and a branch? And when I put a little note in here to myself about which one was which, I think the GPT model itself summed up differences between the two the best. The answer that's friendly is concise, approachable, lightly metaphorical, and practical without getting too technical. Whereas in the pragmatic style, it's concise, practical, and analogy light. Direct definition first, then concrete commands, then the operational distinction. And I think that's the voice that the Codex coding models have always had. They're very terse and to the point. Now, some people really like that, but I really didn't. I always found that just a little bit off-putting. And in fact, it got in the way sometimes of the help that I actually needed. So I do prefer to have friendly turned on. It's not over the top. It's not as extra helpful as Claude Code is. In fact, for quite a while, I couldn't really tell the difference between pragmatic and friendly. But the more I looked into it, the more I noticed that friendly just had a little bit more nuance. So it gave just a tiny bit more description and a little bit more help when I asked for something that I directly didn't understand. So the next big deal thing that Codex has added is computer use. Like I said, this is only for Mac users right now. They added this back in April, and I kind of ignored it because I had seen both ChatGPT and Claude use the Chrome browser and kind of navigate it and do stuff. And, you know, it's pretty impressive that it can do that, but I didn't have a lot of uses for it. But I thought this would be a good chance to give it another test. OpenAI is saying that Codex can basically use any application on your computer that has a graphical user interface. It can click around on just about anything. I haven't tried it extensively, so I don't know how far its training extends. But I did ask it to go research a viral cooking trend and then put together a series of images for me and create a keynote slideshow for me based on that viral cooking trend. So this is what it came up with. It did a pretty good job. You will see that all of the images appear slightly skewed. I don't know why that is, because when it created the images, they were just fine. So something happened when it created the slide deck, something with the aspect ratio. It didn't get it quite right. But overall, it was fairly impressive. I will say though, when I was watching to see exactly where it used computer use, it wasn't as much as I would have expected. These tools have gotten so good, they've got so many skills, and they've got access to so many APIs they can do a ton of work without actually having to use the computer. It searched the web in headless mode. It created all of the images, of course, using its own image generation model. The only thing that I noticed that it used the computer for was when it went to verify that this was an actual Keynote slideshow. Only because I asked it specifically for that, because that's what I have installed on my computer. It did open Keynote and verify that the slideshow was viewable in that format. But everything else it was able to do inside of Codex itself. So next I decided to really kind of push it. I asked it to use the computer to record the screen and then show me how you would add a skill in the Codex desktop app. So on the plus side, it was able to figure out how to do a screen record. It tried to do a couple of things first that it didn't have permission for. Eventually, it ended up using the OBS desktop software that I use to record these videos, and it recorded the entire process that it went through. So I was already pretty impressed by that. However, what it did is it opened just a regular file in the skills directory. It created this markdown file, basically that just says, I'm a demo skill, use this when the user says demo skill check, and it installed it in the right Codex directory. It turns out that the one thing that the Codex app cannot use on your desktop is the Codex app itself. So it went through and did everything the old-fashioned way, created a file and just typed in the words by hand, just created the file for itself and installed it in the right directory. So I thought that was pretty funny that the one thing it could not do is use itself. Kind of makes sense if you think about it. That could get into a really horrifying recursive loop that you'd have a lot of trouble with. But it did then create a PowerPoint presentation based on the screen record that it did. And so this is just a little bit hard to see, but this was pretty impressive. The fact that it managed to record a movie of it doing all of this work and then take screenshots from that to create this slideshow for me based on the actual work it did, create annotations for me, and kind of walk you through what you would do if you were creating a skill in this manner. That was pretty impressive. So by this point, I was thinking, okay, I'm kind of impressed. This app can do a lot. Let me just go ahead and work on a regular project that I've been working on. And that's when I almost stopped using this thing. So I was in here working on a benchmark test that I've got. And I got to the point where I wanted to take a look at the web page, at the simple HTML that I had asked it to create. I came in here to where I thought the file browser would be, and there was nothing. So I was super confused in here. There's no files, there's no directory. And if I open this project in Cursor, you can see that it is just chock-a-block with files and directories and everything. So at first I thought they still didn't have a view of the files in here. So this was super confusing and very frustrating to me until the light bulb went off. This section, this is actually a review tab. This unstaged, that's the clue. This is for Git changes. If you click on this little plus up here and say open file, search for any file in your directory. There's guaranteed to be a markdown file. So just select literally anything and then click the little file icon over here, which looks exactly like the little file icon that we just clicked in the review tab. This will now show you all of the files and directories in your project. So now you can come in here and take a look at any file that you need to take a look at. It is worth noting, this is not an IDE. And so I think one of the reasons that they've done this, they've kind of buried that exposure to the files, is that it's not meant to be an IDE. You can't edit anything in here. And I think more and more, all of these tools are really pushing us toward letting the agent do the work, not editing the files ourselves. But I do work with a lot of documents. I work with a lot of projects that are actually only documentation. I might have a bunch of agents go and do several different types of research for me. So I'll have a stack of files in my project. And I don't necessarily want to go read the files. I will go ask the agent, hey, could you give me an executive summary? What were the decisions that we made? What are the top 3 things we looked at? But I do sometimes want to go in and just see what the files were, which work was done, and what is still outstanding. So it's okay that they're not exposing that at the highest level. But since I know it's there, it was a little frustrating that I couldn't get to it. And the fact that I can still see my files but not edit them, that's actually okay. That's enough for me to be able to work with this tool and actually get work done. Having those files visible, that's kind of the game changer for me. That's when everything clicked and I thought, I think I can actually start using this instead of a bunch of different terminal windows open all the time. I should also say that this Git view is actually, it's pretty nice if you're used to using Git from a graphical interface. I'm not. Most of the time, honestly, in fact, 100% of the time, I'm going into my agent and saying, hey, could you commit everything, check it in, merge it, push it to GitHub. I'm hands off. I'm really just having the agent do all the work. So that Git interface really kind of threw me at first glance. So all of the buzz about the new features, the computer use, even the pets brought me back into Codex. But the thing that really kept me there is the new model. Because of course we have access to GPT-5.5 in the Codex app. And like I'm sure a lot of you already know, that thing is fast. I've been using Claude Code almost exclusively for the last several months, and I do really like it. I like it, the friendliness of it and how it explains things to me. And GPT, even on friendly, is not quite there. But man, that model is fast. The new Opus models have gotten slower and slower, and things take longer and longer than they used to. And the fact that I can just come in and get a lot of stuff done in Codex, that's really nice. I've really found no reason not to keep using the Codex desktop app. I love having all of my projects together. I love being able to bounce around between them all in one window. And the pet, I will say, it's pretty cute. It's nice to have it as kind of a hotkey to get back to the app anytime I need to. I know it's a little bit gimmicky and it's going to probably really irritate a lot of people, but I like it. I will be doing a separate video on the Claude Code desktop app because they've also had a lot of updates recently as well. And it'll be nice to do a little bit of comparison between the two. So if you're interested in that video, hit that subscribe button and you'll see when that video drops. These tools are really racing each other right now. What started out as some pretty major differences in the UI have become more like little nuances in the interface and the capabilities of the two apps. As long as these nuances aren't so confusing that they keep us from actually being able to use one of these apps, that competition is a really good thing for all of us. Because as each model starts adding new features, the other models all race to try to keep up. I think it's a win for everyone, and it should be really interesting to see what comes next. If past history is any indication, it'll be in the next couple of hours. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.